I've been married to James, my spouse of 4 years, and I'm 34 years old. I was certain I knew all there was to know about his background during our 2 years of dating before we were married. His prior marriage to Sarah, which had ended some time before to our meeting, was one example. James told it like it was, and I could see it hadn't gone well. Sarah had an affair with the man she is now married to, which was the most recent of her many affairs with him. Since they had no children together, getting a divorce was easy, and James went above and above the legal minimum to ensure a clean break. At that point, I assumed it would all be over. Recent events, however, have taught me that memories can resurface in the most incongruous ways. James was loved by my parents from the start. They would wax poetic about his diligence, kindness, and responsibility, and how he treated me with the utmost respect. My parents were really supportive. They chipped in for our wedding and provided a sizable down payment for our first house. That's why I was so shocked to learn the truth about their actions. In a lot of ways, it felt like being betrayed. A chronic ailment was identified with me last year. It was unexpected, and processing it has been challenging. The medical expenses were enormous, and that was with insurance. I had to have multiple procedures because I had to take time off from my teaching job without pay so I could get well. Our budget took a major hit. Our mortgage, everyday costs, and my medical bills couldn't be paid for by James's paycheck alone, despite his respectable job as a construction project manager. Helpless, I sought it out from my parents. I was hoping that they might be able to provide me with some short-term financial assistance because they are fairly well off and operate several profitable enterprises. But when I pressed them for more, they said they were strapped for cash and could only spare $500. To be honest, I was surprised. They weren't having any problems running their enterprises, and I didn't want to pry. Perhaps they were trying to hide something from me, I thought. I declined more pressure after thanking them. However, in order to make ends meet, I had to get a second job tutoring students online as soon as I felt well. Having to teach during the day and then tutor late at night was really draining. Unfortunately, there were no other choices, thus my recuperation suffered. James even offered to take on more work, but I didn't want him to overdo it because his job was so physically demanding. Completely by chance, last week the truth came out. Our parents have been lending a hand to Sarah's new business endeavor. My younger sister informed me over the phone as we were casually speaking. I asked her to clarify, and she casually said that they had been financially assisting Sarah, helping her start a yoga studio. At first, I thought I had misheard, but then she gave me the whole story. When I told my sister I didn't know, she seemed shocked and quickly apologized because she thought I did. Even more impressively, she forwarded me screen captures from social media accounts that showed my parents attending Sarah's grand opening as angel investors. I was taken aback. Despite the fact that my parents were assisting James's ex-wife, a woman who had badly wounded him, they would not assist their own daughter with her medical bills. I stung for the following 3 days. I pondered the possible motivations of my parents and attempted to make sense of them. I couldn't stop thinking about whether I had somehow failed to see some blatant clues or whether they had been trying to hint at it, but I had just failed to pick up on the hint. James was as shocked and furious as I was when I informed him. He's incredulous that my parents would conduct in such a way behind our backs, and he has maintained absolutely no communication with Sarah following their divorce. At last, I made up my mind to face them. Every month, James and I host Sunday supper for our family. In an effort to get to the bottom of things, I decided to bring it up face to face. My sister, my parents, and her husband were all sitting there, and maybe if they could see the anguish on my face, they would understand how badly this hurt. I chose to bring it up in a composed manner. I demanded an explanation for their financial support of Sarah's yoga studio and their decision to keep it a secret from me. Without hesitation, my mom spoke, and the words she chose were more excruciatingly awful than I had anticipated. Sarah, she boasted with pride, had been like a daughter to them during their marriage, and even after the divorce. She continued by saying that they had been close to her during her marriage to James and wished to encourage her in her pursuit of her goal of creating a yoga studio. Heard this and it felt like a dream. Despite the fact that this upset me deeply, my mother continued to speak about Sarah as if she were a beloved relative. After then, my dad tried to explain. Sarah, he said, had demonstrated an entrepreneurial drive and a good business strategy. As far as he was concerned, it was a wise investment. He went so far as to say that any assistance with my medical expenses would have been foolish. Rather of wasting money on conventional care, he advised that I prioritize natural healing and think about enrolling in yoga lessons at Sarah's studio. I should have also prepared better for crisis, according to him. Hearing this, I felt numb. He seemed to be implying that he shouldered the cost of running a business above my health, as if I were to blame for my condition. I couldn't hold back anymore. All the pain and frustration I'd bottled up came pouring out. I told them about how hard things had been, how I'd been struggling to recover while working 2 jobs and skipping treatments because we couldn't afford them. I told them how betrayed I felt that they chose to support a woman who had cheated on their son-in-law while leaving me to struggle. My mother rolled her eyes and said I was being melodramatic. That Sarah had made mistakes, but had grown into a resilient businesswoman. She even implied that my anger was rooted in insecurity about James's past marriage. My dad agreed, saying their support of Sarah was separate from family matters, and that I was acting childish. At that point, I had enough. I told them they weren't welcome in my home anymore. They were shocked, but they left in a huff, with my dad muttering something about me being ungrateful. My sister, who had been silent the entire time, stayed behind. She apologized again, crying, saying she had no idea how much it would hurt me. Her husband looked uncomfortable and said it was probably best if they left too. After everyone was gone, James and I sat down, exhausted. He kept saying he felt guilty as if somehow this was his fault, but I reassured him this was entirely on my parents. They were the ones who betrayed me, not him. We both agreed we'd need to set some boundaries with them, maybe even cut contact for a while. I knew I couldn't trust them anymore, but today I've been feeling uncertain. My phone has been flooded with messages from family, with some saying I overreacted and others supporting me. My parents sent me a long email saying they're disappointed in my immature behavior and won't consider reconciliation until I apologize. Their words made me pause for the first time since the confrontation. Maybe I was too harsh. Could they really have thought that they were just helping Sarah out of kindness? I feel conflicted, wondering if I overreacted. If I should have tried harder to see things from their side. I can't shake the feeling of betrayal, but part of me wonders if I was wrong to be so angry. Should I have kept calm and tried to reason with them more? Was I too emotional in that moment? They were cryptic, and I can't shake the feeling that there's something they're not telling me. But is it my fault that they didn't explain everything? What do you think? Am I being unreasonable, or was I justified in feeling hurt by my parents' actions? Update 1. First, thank you to everyone who reached out with support and advice. Reading through the comments made me feel less alone in this, and it's given me a lot to think about as we decide what to do next. Since posting, these last 2 days have brought out more revelations than I ever expected. Shortly after my last post, I had an unexpected message from Sarah on Facebook. She'd apparently been contacted by my parents, who told her about our confrontation. The message she sent was, well, it was dripping with concern that felt more like thinly veiled mockery. She wrote that she wanted to clear the air between us, claiming she had no idea about my medical struggles and saying she was sorry I'd gone through that. But then she threw in a backhanded suggestion that I should take a month of free yoga classes at her studio for stress relief, as if her classes were some magical cure-all. Knowing that my sister confirmed our parents talked about my health with Sarah regularly at the studio, I knew it was all fake sympathy. I blocked her without responding. The biggest shock, though, came from my aunt, my mom's sister. She called me out of the blue yesterday, sounding hesitant, but also worried. She said she'd been following what happened through the family grapevine and had something she needed to share. Apparently, my parents' relationship with Sarah has been going on even deeper than I ever imagined. They've been celebrating holidays with Sarah and her new husband, inviting them to family events, and even went on vacation together last summer, a trip they told me they couldn't take with us because they were swamped with business. My aunt told me she'd always found the situation uncomfortable, feeling like Sarah had become their replacement daughter while I was kept at arm's length. She apologized for not telling me sooner and admitted she was afraid to cause drama within the family, especially since my parents have been treating her coldly whenever she questions them. She even shared some photos from a few gatherings, including my cousin's wedding last year, which they told me was immediate family only. Yet there was Sarah, grinning with my parents in the background, like she was truly part of the family. In some of those photos, my parents and Sarah even look closer to each other than I've ever felt with them. It's like they truly adopted her in some twisted sense. Seeing those pictures was just so painful. It wasn't just that they were supporting her financially. They were emotionally invested in her life, giving her the love and support they refused to give me. I've also had a long heart-to-heart with my sister. She feels terribly guilty for keeping their secret and has decided to distance herself from our parents as well. In our conversation, she shared even more shocking details. Turns out, our parents had been pressuring her to take classes at Sarah's studio, talking up the benefits of yoga and the importance of supporting family. She could invest a portion of her inheritance from our grandparents to help Sarah expand her business, money that was meant for my sister's future, not for supporting the woman who had so thoroughly disrupted my life. My sister has done some serious self-reflection and is now just as outraged by our parents' behavior. She confessed that she always felt a strange competition growing up, but this crossed the line she never expected. She's vowed to distance herself and rethink her relationship with them. Having her by my side means so much right now. She's one of the few people who truly understands what this betrayal feels like. James, bless him, has been incredibly supportive, but I can see he's also grappling with his own complex emotions. Mainly a mix of anger and guilt. He's told me several times that he wishes he'd been more upfront about Sarah's manipulation back when they divorced. He never wanted to stir the pot, especially since he knew how close my parents and I were. But now he's realized that downplaying Sarah's influence on their lives only enabled my parents to draw even closer to her. He's furious that, through no fault of his own, his past marriage is still haunting us and affecting our present. At one point, he suggested maybe we should consider moving further away. A fresh start, away from all the painful memories tied to our hometown. The idea of moving isn't new to us, but I can see it weighs on him. He's feeling like he's forced me into a situation that could have been avoided. I keep reminding him that none of this is his fault and that my parents' choices were out of his hands. But it's hard to see him struggling with this guilt. And to top it off, my parents sent a long scolding email this morning. It was mostly them expressing disappointment in my immaturity and detailing how they believed Sarah was more family-oriented than I was, because she had always made an effort to stay connected. They even accused me of being jealous of Sarah's business success and implied that my illness was my way of seeking attention. It was like reading a letter from strangers. They took zero accountability, not a single word of apology, and twisted everything to make it seem like I was being unreasonable. They went on about how I should appreciate all the support they gave us during the wedding and the early years of our marriage, then had the nerve to demand an apology before they'd even consider speaking with us again. At this point, I'm not even sure an apology would change anything, and honestly, I don't know if I want any reconciliation. I forwarded the email to my sister, who, after reading it, told me I made the right decision in cutting them out for now. This entire situation feels surreal. It's like I've lost my parents, even though they're still physically here. I've always felt a need to please them, to be the good daughter. But now I realize they've never seen me as enough. They put Sarah on a pedestal, held her up as the golden child, and cast me aside when I needed them most. For the first time in my life, I feel free from that burden. But it's a freedom that comes at a heavy price. So here we are, trying to rebuild our lives without the support and presence of the people who were supposed to be my family. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to focus on my health, my marriage, and the people who actually care about me. It's heartbreaking to say goodbye to the illusion of the family I thought I had. But maybe this will allow me to create a stronger, healthier family for myself and for James. Update 2. This situation has spiraled into something I never could have anticipated. My parents' response to me cutting them off has been to double down in ways that are truly disturbing. This whole thing has turned into one big nightmare. 2 days ago, they crossed a line I never imagined. They showed up at my workplace unannounced during lunch break, and with Sarah by their side. Apparently, they thought a public confrontation would force me to hear them out or embarrass me into letting everything slide. I got called down to the office, and there they were, along with Sarah, claiming they just needed to talk. I was in disbelief at their audacity, but thankfully the school security protocols worked exactly as intended. They were stopped at the front office and weren't allowed to proceed without my approval. I refused, of course, and my principal and colleagues were incredibly supportive. They documented the incident, and my principal updated my file to ensure my parents and Sarah would be prohibited from campus access going forward. But that wasn't the end of it. That evening, we discovered they had somehow given Sarah our new home security code. We had originally shared it with my parents for emergencies, but it never occurred to me that they'd hand it over to her. I found out when our Ring camera alerted me to someone at the front door. Watching the footage, I saw Sarah trying to let herself in, insisting she was there to leave a peace offering for me. It was chilling to realize she had the access code to our house. James and I immediately changed all the codes and locks. We also filed a police report to document the attempted entry, even though we decided not to press charges for now. That level of intrusion shook us both. If we hadn't seen the footage in real time, who knows what she might have done inside our home? These events opened a floodgate for more news. My sister took it upon herself to dig deeper, trying to understand how far this connection with Sarah really went. What she found out got us both stunned. For the past year, it turns out my parents have been quietly paying Sarah's mortgage. Suddenly, some of their recent financial decisions made sense, like cutting down on what they promised for our wedding and relocating family funds that were supposedly for emergencies only. It all clicked into place when my sister revealed this. They've been sacrificing my well-being to keep Sarah afloat financially. The more disturbing discovery came from a mutual friend of ours who's still somewhat in contact with my parents. Apparently, they've been telling people in their social circle that I'm mentally unstable. According to them, Sarah stepped up to help the family because I wasn't able to. This narrative explains a lot. The over-the-top generosity towards Sarah and their cold, almost clinical dismissal of my health struggles. They spun a story that painted me as incapable and unwell, and themselves as doting parents doing their best to handle me. Hearing this from a friend who had always respected my parents was heartbreaking. It was as if they were rewriting my entire life to justify their actions. The silver lining in this mess has been the outpouring of support from friends, family, and colleagues. My coworkers at the school started a meal train to help out while we dealt with all the extra stress. And James's team at work has offered to cover some of his shifts so that he can focus on keeping our household safe. They're even helping us brainstorm options for further securing our home. Meanwhile, my sister and her husband have completely cut contact with our parents, which wasn't an easy decision for them. They're helping us document everything, from the attempted entry to the financial inconsistencies and the lies being spread about my mental health. If we need to take legal action, we want all of this well documented. One moment that sticks with me from the last 2 days happened when I got a text from one of my closest friends from high school who had recently reconnected with my parents. She'd heard from them about my episodes and said she was genuinely concerned for me. They told her I'd been erratic and prone to breakdowns, and they suggested she reach out to offer support. I had to explain to her the actual situation, sharing parts of my experience and what I'd been going through. Thankfully, she believed me, but the damage had already been done. I realized that my parents were spreading this mentally unstable narrative even outside their close social circle, essentially isolating me from people I'd known for years. At this point, I'm left wondering how far they're willing to go. I spoke with a lawyer this morning to get advice on issuing a formal restraining order. While I'm reluctant to escalate things legally, the thought of my parents potentially showing up anywhere or using people close to us to get to me has made me seriously consider it. I never thought that it would come to this, but with each new incident, it becomes clearer that my safety and peace of mind might depend on creating firm legal boundaries. For now, we're trying to take things one day at a time, keeping close friends updated and leaning on each other. James has been an incredible support through all this, but I can tell it's wearing on him too. We've started looking into counseling, and he's urged me to join a support group for people going through similar family estrangement. I think it might help me process all the anger and betrayal and stop second-guessing myself. This entire situation has pushed me to my breaking point, but seeing so many people rally around us, I'm starting to believe we'll make it through this stronger. As for my parents, I don't know what they could do at this point that would surprise me, but after these last few days, nothing feels impossible. All I can do is stand my ground, keep moving forward, and try to build a life that doesn't include the chaos they created. Update 3. Thank you to everyone who's been here through this entire ordeal. So much has happened over the last few days, and I'll try to capture everything. It's been a whirlwind. I apologize in advance if this update feels like a flood of information, but there's no easy way to tell this story. Another shocking discovery came from my sister. She managed to get access to some financial records, and it turns out our parents have invested almost $500,000 in Sarah's business ventures over the past 3 years. We had no idea the extent of their involvement. This isn't just about the yoga studio either. They funneled money into a failed wellness product line and even funded a life coaching certification program that Sarah apparently tried to get off the ground. The thought of them pouring that amount of money into Sarah's dreams while refusing to pay for my medical expenses is a hard pill to swallow. But frankly, at this point, it isn't that surprising either. Meanwhile, I made the decision to resign from my online tutoring job. It was a tough call, but my doctor confirmed that the additional work was putting a strain on my recovery. James and I sat down, combed through our budget, and realized we could make it work on just my teaching salary and his income. The sacrifices we'll need to make feel worth it just for the chance to focus on my health. On top of that, James just received a promotion that came with better health insurance. So that will help us cover my ongoing medical expenses without us having to worry too much. And thanks to the money we've managed to save, we feel financially secure enough to take this step. With all of this happening, we also decided to move next month. We'll be moving to a new house in a different neighborhood, and while the commute will be a bit longer for both of us, we need this fresh start. There's too much of the old life tied up in our current home. Too many memories of my parents coming over and trying to be a part of our lives on their terms. A new place will hopefully bring the peace and separation we've been needing. The hardest part of all this has been accepting that my parents' behavior isn't really about Sarah at all. She's just a symptom of deeper issues. This has forced me to confront the fact that my parents' love might have always come with conditions. They've prioritized their own image over their children's needs, and their inability to accept me for who I am has caused damage that I'm not sure will ever fully heal. Last night, something happened that drove this point home. James and I were out running errands when I got a frantic call from our neighbor. She noticed a car parked outside our house that she didn't recognize, and it turns out it was my parents. They were sitting in their car, waiting and occasionally walking up to our front door. I had no idea they'd escalate to essentially stalking us at home. We called the police, who came and asked them to leave. They didn't press charges since no trespassing actually occurred, but the officers did document the incident. It was chilling, though, to see how far my parents were willing to go just to force some kind of confrontation. As soon as we got home, we checked all our locks, cameras, and security systems. James even spent the evening adding extra security measures and updating our Ring camera settings. We've now notified all our neighbors so that they'll be on alert if they see my parents or Sarah around. We're trying to be proactive, but I can't shake the feeling that they might try something else. We had the last, most difficult talk about our parents today, with my sister. She has formally severed ties with them. According to what she told me, they made some statements when she challenged them about Sarah's mortgage and sponsoring her business endeavors. Sarah had aided the family in ways that I was unable to, so they felt obligated to repay her. They apparently still consider me a burden, a damaged daughter who is unable to cope with pressure. I was shocked by the callous disregard for human suffering shown by the remarks. Their dismissal of my health problems and hardships as weaknesses and their general lack of interest in understanding me were the first signs. Simply put, they aimed to dictate the storyline. On top of that, today a mutual acquaintance contacted me with additional shocking news. I was too naive to notice that James was taking advantage of me. She informed me my parents had been circulating such tales. Their claims that he has been secretly taking money from me for his personal benefit are completely unfounded. I can't believe they would attempt to isolate me further by turning people against James, who has been my financial and emotional support. Hearing these falsehoods devastated my heart, especially because James had tried everything to save me from this terror. More than ever before, I have relied on my chosen family. Throughout this ordeal, our loved ones, neighbors, and even coworkers have been nothing short of amazing. Many have checked in with me to make sure I'm doing well, and a handful have even offered to lend a hand with the relocation next month. They have shown me the definition of family, a group of people who love and support you no matter what and who don't expect you to change who you are. In particular, my sister and her husband have been tremendously helpful in documenting all of this in case we ever need it for legal proceedings. The last several days have made the full impact of the situation sink in. It finally hit me. I've wasted a lot of time and energy attempting to win their favor, meet their unrealistic expectations, and prove my worthiness in their eyes. I used to think I could impress them, but now I understand that I can't. Why? Because they like my idealized self-image rather than my actual self. Accepting it is both liberating and painful. The urge to prove myself to those who have never seen me for who I really am is finally beginning to go away. James and I have chosen to start counseling together, in part to help us make sense of everything that has happened and in part to cement our relationship for what is to come. We're dedicated to recovering together, even though the damage my parents caused will not go away immediately. Because the anguish and isolation of dealing with family alienation can be so overwhelming, I'm thinking about maybe attending a support group for those who are going through the same thing. My deepest gratitude goes out to everyone who has stuck with me during this ordeal. A ray of hope in the midst of darkness has been your encouragement. Although this period of our life has been difficult, it has taught us the value of genuine family and love. My goals going forward are to get well, surround myself with caring people, and be my best self without having to live up to my parents' expectations. This is likely going to be my final update, but I wanted to express my thanks before I go. If you or someone you know is dealing with toxic family dynamics, please know that you are deserving of unconditional love and respect. That is something I am painfully learning, but I am learning nonetheless.